Hello again. Today's project was meant to be a drawing using Faber-Castell polychromos pencils, but halfway through it morphed into a Derwent Inktense block painting. The subject is a portrait of a beautiful girl that I took a photo of while traveling on the ferry. I started out with the polychromos pencils. I was using medium flesh and burnt ochre to lightly fill in the facial features. I'm just going around with a light layer of these colors to get a general impression of the girl's face. I have some very light 6H pencil lines as guides, and I want to get some color over these before I've erased them with the pressure from my hand. Any lines I have erased, I will have to freehand in, and if you've seen my Man of Steel drawing, you'll know that my freehand skills are far from impressive. Once I get most of the face penciled in, I then focus on the eyes, as the white zombie look is starting to creep me out a little bit. The eyes are brown, quite a dark brown, almost black, but I choose to use artistic license and lighten them up a bit. One motivation for this project was to use my new watercolor paper. It's the Moulin de Wa 140-pound hot press paper by Canson. It's quite a nice paper, but a little on the pricey side. I am now adding my second and sometimes third layer to the face, slowly darkening things up. This is where I get into a little bit of trouble. As I add another layer, I notice that I'm getting uneven color in areas. I tried applying more pressure, which made it worse. I tried removing the pigment using Scotch tape and reapplying layers, but that didn't remedy the problem. At this point, I realized I must have spilled something on the paper prior to applying the layer. I didn't really want to start again and wanted to continue working, so I opted to switch to Inktense Blocks and hope that washing over the paper with the brush would be less affected by whatever was on the paper. Using the Inktense Blocks and an angular brush, I start to fill in the background, the ocean, sky, and mountains. I was then going to add in the hair, but decided against it, as the black hair would layer over any color, and I can just add it last. I noticed right away the Inktense Blocks combined with the polychromos pencils quite well. I was worried about the water-resistant status of the pencils, but it didn't seem to be a problem. Maybe because I'd only applied a light layer and the paper is fairly smooth. Her skin is quite dark, so I'm using baked earth as a base color and darkening with willow or madder brown. About halfway through the Inktense block painting, it occurred to me that I probably didn't have to switch and could simply have cleaned the paper off with some water, let it dry, and then gone back to the polychromos pencil drawing. Switching was fine though, as I enjoy working with Inktense and I wanted to see how the new watercolor paper would perform with the blocks. I've added a little more color to the eyes, and now I'm adding the first layer of black to the hair. I do a few touch-ups on the background, then back to applying a second layer of Inktense to her neck and shoulders. For her blouse I'm using cherry and crimson. For the shaded sections I use a bit of oxide red. I really enjoy working with the Inktense blocks. I have several pencil sets, but find that for any drawing, you are only efficiently using the pencils for the first layer or two of the image. Final layers, details, and touch-ups are more effectively applied using a brush. You can apply a brush to the pencils themselves, or grate the lead and use that to make a paste, but it's far easier and more efficient to just use the blocks. I'm just going through the final details and touch-ups, darkening the eyebrows, adding in another layer to the hair, putting in the details on the blouse. I also took the time to get some critiques before declaring it a finished product. The feedback was good, and I strongly recommend any time you do art to get some feedback before you finish. Interestingly, my 7-year-old son tends to be the most critical, and was the only one who pointed out that I had not drawn in an earring. While I'm applying the finishing touches, I will just mention that I do have a couple of things in the works. First is a review of the Faber-Castell Polychromos pencils. I've used them a few times now, but not for a complete project. So once I actually complete something and get a good feel for them, I will post a review. Second is a full review of the Derwent Inktense Blocks, which you have seen here in action. Lastly is a quick tutorial on the types of paper I use for colored pencil drawing. That's all for today. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I should be back in a week with more drawings.